Sir, I'm going to need you to move to a seat in the back. We have a VIP passenger who needs this row. I paid extra for this exact seat.
Is there a safety issue, or just someone you've decided is more important than me?
I don't need to explain airline policy to you. Just gather your things and move.
Now.
With all due respect, I'm not moving anywhere without a legitimate reason. My ticket says 12C.
Too, and so do my rights.
If you don't comply, I'll call security and have you removed from this flight. Don't test me. Before you make that call, you should know I'm a
Civil rights attorney. I've spent 15 years suing companies for exactly this kind of discrimination.
Imagine sitting in your paid seat on a flight, minding your own business, when suddenly a flight attendant demands you move, not because of safety, not because of overbooking, but because of the color of your skin. What happened next left the entire cabin speechless and taught everyone on board a lesson they'd never forget. This is the true story of how one man's courage turned a moment of humiliation into a powerful stand for justice. Picture this. You've worked hard, paid your money, followed every rule, and you're simply trying to get home. Then someone in a position of authority looks at you and decides you don't belong. Your heart starts racing, your hands might shake, but you know deep down that what's happening is wrong. Do you stay silent to avoid confrontation? Do you accept the injustice just to keep the peace? Or do you stand up, knowing that your voice might be the one that finally says enough is enough? This isn't just another story about discrimination. This is about the split-second decision that defines who we are as human beings. It's about the courage to challenge authority when authority is wrong. It's about one man who refused to be invisible, who refused to accept treatment that stripped away his dignity, and who ultimately changed not just his own day, but the entire culture of an airline. What makes this story even more powerful is that the man at the center of it had spent his entire career fighting for justice for others. But on this particular day, he found himself in the very situation he defended countless clients against. The difference? He knew exactly what to do, exactly what to say, and exactly how to turn a moment of discrimination into a teaching moment that would echo far beyond that airplane cabin. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will make you angry, it will make you think, and ultimately, it will make you believe in the power of standing up for what's right. This is the story of Marcus Thompson, Flight 447, and the day that everything changed. Marcus Thompson wasn't just any passenger on Flight 447 that Tuesday morning. He was a successful civil rights attorney with 15 years of experience fighting discrimination cases in courtrooms across the country. His reputation was stellar, a man who dedicated his life to ensuring that every person, regardless of race, religion, or background, received equal treatment under the law. He'd won cases against corporations, government entities, and institutions that thought they were untouchable. His weapon wasn't aggression or anger. It was knowledge, composure, and an unwavering belief in justice. After winning a particularly challenging case protecting employees from workplace bias, Marcus was heading home to celebrate with his family. The case had been exhausting, months of depositions, countless hours reviewing evidence, and emotionally draining testimonies from victims who'd suffered discrimination. But he'd won, and the victory meant that dozens of workers would now be protected from the very treatment he was about to experience himself. Dressed in a sharp navy business suit with a crisp white shirt and burgundy tie, Marcus looked every bit the successful professional he was. His leather briefcase sat neatly under the seat in front of him, containing case files and his laptop. He'd specifically chosen seat 12C in premium economy, an aisle seat that gave him room to stretch his long legs and easy access to the restroom during the 4-hour flight. He'd paid extra for this comfort, as any weary traveler would. The flight was buzzing with the usual pre-departure energy. Passengers stuffed luggage into overhead bins, children giggled in anticipation of their destinations, and the crew performed their standard safety checks. Flight attendants smiled and helped elderly passengers find their seats. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing an on-time departure and clear skies ahead. Marcus pulled out his laptop, planning to review some documents during the flight and maybe catch up on emails he'd neglected during the intense trial. Everything seemed perfectly normal. The passenger next to him, a young woman reading a novel, smiled politely as she settled in. Across the aisle, a businessman was already asleep, his head tilted against the window. Behind him, a family was trying to entertain a restless toddler with coloring books. It was just another Tuesday flight, filled with ordinary people going about their lives. But normal was about to be shattered in the most unexpected and disturbing way, proving that discrimination doesn't take days off, doesn't care about your credentials, and can happen anywhere, even 30,000 feet in the air. About 20 minutes before the scheduled takeoff, while most passengers were settling in and the cabin was filled with the ambient noise of conversation and rustling bags, a flight attendant named Patricia approached Marcus's row. Her body language was stiff, her expression cold, and almost irritated before she even opened her mouth. She didn't greet him with the professional courtesy she'd shown other passengers. She didn't smile. She simply stood there, arms crossed, and delivered her demand like she was addressing someone who'd already done something wrong. "Sir, I'm going to need you to move to a seat in the back. We have a VIP passenger who needs this row. Marcus looked up from his laptop, genuinely confused by both the request and the hostile tone. He glanced around, wondering if there was some emergency he'd missed, some announcement he hadn't heard. Excuse me? I paid for this specific seat. Is there a problem with the aircraft? Is this a safety issue? Patricia's tone grew noticeably sharper, her impatience barely contained. I don't need to explain airline policy to you. Just gather your things and move to the back. Now. She gestured dismissively toward the rear of the plane, as if shooing away something unwanted. Something felt profoundly wrong. Marcus's legal instincts, honed by years of recognizing discriminatory patterns, kicked in immediately. He carefully scanned the cabin. The seats surrounding him were occupied mostly by white passengers, business travelers with laptops, families with children, elderly couples. None of them were being asked to relocate. Patricia hadn't stopped at any other row. She hadn't made any general announcement about needing seats. She had walked directly to him, singled him out, and demanded he move. The attorney in him began mentally documenting everything. Her tone, her specific words, the lack of explanation, the absence of any request to other passengers, the timing. Ma'am, with all due respect, I'm not moving, Marcus said, his voice calm but firm, loud enough to be clear but not aggressive. I purchased this seat through the airline's website 3 weeks ago. I've checked in properly. I've followed all procedures. Unless there's a legitimate safety or operational reason, which you haven't provided, I have every contractual and legal right to remain in the seat I paid for. Patricia's face flushed red, her authority being challenged clearly infuriating her. If you don't comply immediately, I will call security and have you removed from this flight. Don't test me. The surrounding passengers began to notice the confrontation. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the cabin like a wave. Some people pulled out their phones, sensing something wasn't right, their instincts telling them this was a moment that needed to be documented. Marcus remained utterly composed, his courtroom training serving him well. He knew that losing his temper would only give her ammunition. Ma'am, before you make that call, I need to inform you of something important. I'm an attorney specializing in civil rights law. I've handled dozens of discrimination cases. What you're doing right now, singling me out without legitimate cause, threatening me with removal while not making the same request of any other passenger in this section, could constitute discrimination under federal law. I assure you, this airline will face serious legal consequences if you proceed without valid justification. I'm asking you one more time. What is the specific, legitimate reason I'm being asked to move when no one else is? Patricia hesitated for just a moment, and Marcus could see the flicker of uncertainty cross her face. But pride, that dangerous, stubborn pride, wouldn't let her back down. She'd made her demand publicly, and now backing down would feel like defeat. You're being disruptive and argumentative. That's reason enough for removal, she declared, her voice rising. I've been sitting quietly at my assigned seat, reviewing work documents, Marcus replied, his voice steady, but now deliberately loud enough for everyone in the surrounding rows to hear clearly. I haven't raised my voice until this very moment, and only to defend my rights. I haven't used profanity. I haven't threatened anyone. I haven't caused any disturbance whatsoever. The only disruption in this cabin right now is you singling me out for relocation when you haven't asked anyone else in this entire section to move. That's not disruption on my part. That's discrimination on yours. A passenger from across the aisle, a middle-aged white woman with silver hair and glasses, suddenly spoke up, her voice clear and firm. Excuse me, but he's absolutely right. I've been sitting here watching this entire interaction from the beginning. You walked right past all of us, past me, past the gentleman sleeping, past that family with children, and went straight to this man. You didn't ask any of us to move. I didn't hear any announcement about VIP passengers. This is completely inappropriate, and frankly, it's obvious what's happening here. This is discrimination, plain and simple. Another passenger, a younger man in his 30s sitting 2 rows back, stood up and added, I saw the same thing. I'll absolutely testify to that if needed. I've got video on my phone too. This is completely wrong, and everyone here can see it. More passengers began nodding in agreement, murmuring their support. The cabin atmosphere had completely shifted. What Patricia had intended as a quiet, quick removal of an undesirable passenger had become a very public referendum on her behavior, and she was losing badly. Patricia's confidence visibly crumbled. The color drained from her face as she realized that she no longer controlled the narrative. She stammered something about just following procedures and quickly called for the flight supervisor over her radio, her hands shaking slightly. David Chun, the flight supervisor, arrived within minutes. He was a professional with over 20 years in the airline industry, and his experienced eyes quickly assessed that this situation was serious. After Patricia explained her version of events, conveniently omitting key details and portraying Marcus as aggressive and non-compliant, David turned to Marcus and asked, in a genuinely respectful tone, Sir, can you please tell me your perspective on what happened here? Marcus calmly and methodically presented the facts, the timeline of events, Patricia's specific words, her tone, the lack of explanation, the absence of any request to other passengers, and the witnesses willing to corroborate his account. He kept his emotions in check, presenting his case as he would in a courtroom, with facts, logic, and undeniable evidence. Then Marcus asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Chun, I have a simple request. Can you please identify this VIP passenger who supposedly needs my specific seat? Can you show me the documentation that justifies this seat reassignment? And can you explain why, if this is standard protocol for VIP accommodations, no other passengers in premium economy were asked to relocate? I'd also like to know if your airline has a policy that allows flight attendants to move passengers without explanation, and if so, I'd like that policy in writing right now. The silence that followed was deafening. David's expression shifted from professional neutrality to barely concealed concern as the implications became crystal clear. There was no VIP passenger. There was no policy. There was no legitimate reason. There was only discrimination, caught in the act, with multiple witnesses and video evidence. David Chin's face showed a mixture of anger at his employee and profound embarrassment for his airline. He pulled Patricia aside for a private, but clearly intense conversation near the galley. Through the gap between seats, passengers could see her shaking her head, gesturing defensively, but David's body language was unmistakable. This was not a negotiation. Within minutes, David returned to Marcus, his demeanor completely transformed from bureaucratic supervisor to genuinely apologetic human being. Mr. Thompson, I sincerely apologize for this completely unacceptable situation. What happened here is not only against our airline's policies, but against everything we claim to stand for as a company. You have every right to remain in your seat. That was never in question and should never have been challenged. There is no VIP passenger. There was absolutely no legitimate reason for this request. What you experienced was discrimination, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence or waste your time by pretending otherwise. We're going to make this right, though I know that doesn't erase what happened. Patricia was immediately removed from the flight, escorted off the aircraft by airport security. The airline later confirmed through official channels that she faced immediate suspension and subsequent disciplinary action for discriminatory conduct, though they couldn't disclose specific employment outcomes due to privacy laws. What they could say, and did say publicly, was that such behavior violated their core values and zero-tolerance policy. David personally upgraded Marcus to first class, refunded his entire ticket cost immediately, and provided him with substantial travel vouchers for future flights. But more importantly, more powerfully, he did something that Marcus later said mattered far more than any financial compensation. David made a cabin-wide announcement, his voice carried through the intercom to every passenger on that plane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Flight Supervisor David Chun. Before we depart, I need to address what just happened in this cabin. A passenger was inappropriately and wrongfully asked to change seats due to discriminatory behavior by a member of our crew. That crew member has been removed from this flight and will face serious consequences. Our airline has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. Every passenger on this aircraft deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and equality, regardless of race, religion, gender, or any other factor. We failed one of our passengers today, and for that, I apologize to him and to all of you who witnessed it. If any of you ever experience or witness discrimination on our flights, I personally encourage you to report it immediately. Thank you for your patience, and I apologize for the delay. The cabin erupted in applause. Passengers turned to Marcus, nodding with respect, some giving him thumbs up. As the plane finally took off, multiple passengers approached Marcus throughout the flight. Some thanked him for standing his ground and not backing down. Others shared their own painful stories of discrimination, being followed in stores, being pulled over for no reason, being passed over for promotions, being made to feel invisible or threatening simply for existing. A few simply shook his hand and said, "You did the right thing. Thank you for your courage." One elderly black woman, tears in her eyes, squeezed Marcus's hand and whispered, "My generation had to move to the back of the bus. Thank God your generation refuses to move. You stood up for all of us today." Marcus later gave an interview to a civil rights podcast where he reflected on the experience. "This wasn't just about me keeping my seat or winning an argument. It was about refusing to accept treatment that no person should have to endure in 2024. It was about recognizing that when we stay silent in the face of injustice, even small, everyday injustices, we give that injustice permission to continue and to grow. Every time we accept discrimination quietly, we make it easier for the next person to be discriminated against. But every time we stand up, we make it harder. We create accountability. We remind people that actions have consequences." The incident sparked a comprehensive internal review at the airline, leading to enhanced anti-discrimination training for all staff members, revised protocols for passenger interactions, and a new reporting system for discrimination complaints. Patricia's actions, intended to demean and diminish, instead became a catalyst for positive institutional change that would protect thousands of future passengers. Marcus's story reminds us of a profound truth. Standing up for what's right isn't always easy, comfortable, or convenient. It would have been easier for Marcus to just move to the back, to avoid confrontation, to keep his head down. But easy and right are not always the same thing. Sometimes doing what's right means being uncomfortable. It means speaking up when silence would be simpler. It means risking conflict to defend principles that matter more than temporary peace. One voice, refusing to be silenced, refusing to accept injustice, can create waves of change that reach far beyond a single moment, a single flight, a single day. This story proves that courage doesn't always roar with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it's the quiet, steady voice that simply says, I will not be moved. I will not be diminished. I will not accept this. Marcus Thompson turned a moment that was designed to humiliate him into a powerful lesson for everyone watching, everyone listening, and everyone who will hear this story. He showed us that knowing your rights matters, that speaking up matters, that witnesses matter, and that one person standing firm can change everything. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it made you think about the power we all have to stand up for justice in our everyday lives, then smash that like button right now. Hit it hard, because these stories need to reach more people. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the face of injustice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Your friend who's facing discrimination, your family member who needs courage, your coworker who stays silent when they should speak up. These stories need to be told, amplified, and remembered. Now here's my question for you, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments below because your voice matters. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like this? On a plane, in a store, at work, anywhere? And did you speak up or stay silent? What would you have done in Marcus's situation? Would you have moved to avoid confrontation, or would you have stood your ground? And if you stayed silent when you witnessed injustice, what stopped you? And what would you do differently now? Let's start a real, honest conversation down in the comments. I read every single one. I respond to as many as I can, and your stories matter. They educate others, they inspire courage, and they remind us we're not alone. Let's build a community that stands up, speaks up, and refuses to back down. Let's go.